Hello, everyone, and welcome to Campus Movie Fest workshops. This is a new series that we wanted to give to every college student, especially during this pandemic, to learn more about the industry through a variety of different panels and workshops. My name is Byron Gamble, and I'm the School Partnership Manager for Campus Movie Fest and the moderator for tonight's workshop. Tonight, we have an amazing guest, Rachael Tartell, here to discuss location management. Rachael has had a love of the arts ever since she was a young girl, immersing herself in the world of theater from a young age. She thought that is where she would end up, yet it was her work in theater that opened the door for her to work in film and television and introduce her to the always entertaining world of locations. Her knowledge of New York City helped her get the foot in the door, but it was many grueling days of pounding the pavement and working long hours that helped her move up to become a location manager. Rachael worked on many New York City-based shows such as Law & Order SVU, Rescue Me, Michael Clayton, and Definitely Maybe, among many others. Her proudest accomplishments are rerouting air traffic for the movie Michael Clayton to get on an airplane in the shot with the approval and in accordance with the FAA and the LGA Air Tower, and closing down 16 miles of highway, which is insane to me, both directions for 3 days for the first episode of Banshee Season 2. So I need a lot more details on that. Rachael is currently residing in Atlanta with her husband, who is also a film professional, and their son. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Rachael to the workshop to give us an overview of location management and her side of the story. Rachael, come on over.
Hi. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hello. We can see
Hi.
you. Perfect. I'll talk on over to you. And if you want to just give us an introduction, that's perfect.
Sure. So I'm Rachael. Thank you to everyone that's joining. Not many people know about, what really locations does on a film shoot. There are people that have been in the industry for many years that still don't know. So um, I'll get into it a little bit and then you can ask questions, but basically, like every position, every department in film or anything, you start with the PA, production assistant, and those are the people that are just starting out, and it's paid on the job training. You learn, and most of it is watch. I always tell our location PAs and location assistants, actually anybody, always have a notebook, always have a pen. If somebody asks you to do something, just do it, and then you can ask questions later because it's usually right in the middle of chaos, which is generally the case. But a lot of that is supervising set. The not very interesting parts of the job that you can learn. But I'll get into it. Location assistant is you're managing, you're helping with cones and signage, and if they call for locations, you're able to move tents or what have you, and the pop-up tents that video village, and that's where the director and the cameras and all of that stuff that they can look, the monitors. Then you have location scouts, and location scouts are the people which I love. I mean, it's a really fun job. You go and you have a meeting with me, the location manager, who's been talking to the production designer and director and producers, and you go through a script and you see what, basically the feel of what they're looking for, and then you go out and it's you meet people and you're the first face that the production sees. So just it's always nice to be friendly and explain. I always tell people, just be as honest and truthful as you can when you're talking about what happens, because I think there are a lot of properties that I've heard that they've had filming before and they were like, oh, it'll just be a few people, it won't be a big deal. Like I always say, the circus is coming to town, it's going to be a lot, but it'll be fun, we'll take care of your house, and our motto is to always leave things better than the way that you found them, which goes not just for the property that you're filming at, but the neighborhood. You want to make sure that those water bottles didn't roll 2 blocks down from the trucks or whatever. But when you're scouting, you basically get an idea of what the production is looking for, what the director is looking for. Picture taking is very important. You want to get, basically, if you're looking at a house, you want to be able to give the director a view of what the house is without being there. So, get as far back as you can, take the shot, always do a reverse, same with the exteriors, and make it be an easy tour of the space that you're going into. A lot of times, it's very close up shots and maybe a little bit blurry. Just make sure that you get the lighting right. I actually, when I scout, I don't use a flash. I use natural light, and if I need to, I edit it in the final process on my computer, which is now it's digital. When I started, it was film. So when we would take pictures, we hoped that our pans would come out, which is, if you're taking a shot of a room, you want to get, it's like on your iPhone, right? You get the scan of the room. Well, that we had to take shot by shot by shot by shot, hope they developed right, cut them with an X-Acto knife, put them together with double-sided tape, and put them in folders. So anyway, so we did that. And then assistant managers, you sort of are the difference between the location manager. You're basically on set, and if the location manager is scouting the scenes for the next episode, or the next locations, you're the person that can help assist, all of the information. And I always say our department needs to be fully communicative with each other and the crew. There's a lot to go on to all of this. Now, it's so hard to explain, and then location manager.
Though.
What?
That was a perfect overview, truly, truly, because I already have so many questions for you. So that was perfect.
Oh, good. Okay.
Well, you were just.
So, it's a lot. And then this is also like, what's that?
Oh, I was saying you.
This is, and then it's just.
You go.
Well, okay. I was just going to say, this is also like, you deal with the external world, but the location department is also like the liaison between the other crew. So it's also setting up appointments with like, pre-riggers or electric department, or, people need to get in when you're prepping, shooting, and wrapping. And so you're basically trying to move all the pieces to make sure everything's scheduled, and, that the property owner knows, and the neighborhood knows, the city knows, and there's a lot. It's hard to explain it in like 3 minutes. So hopefully that was not completely.
No, that was a perfect overview. The first thing I immediately went to my mind is, talk to me a little bit about like relationship building, because I'm sure you are working with these people, and like you said, they're trusting their house with you. So how much do you have to put into building that relationship with a person, or does it kind of just come with the job title that the trust is kind of already installed?
So it's a good question. What I've realized, it really depends on where you are in terms of, city versus country, or somebody that is more experienced, has had filming before, versus something that this is totally new. It's so important though. I say, New York, there's so much film. So a lot of it is, hey, we want to come film. Okay, what are the days? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, shake your hand, and that's it. And in areas that they're not as familiar, my gosh, you go into their house, and a lot of it is just, they want to trust you enough to, where you get them to show you pictures of like their kids and grandkids. And they want to make sure that you are the trustworthy person, because you're going to be their contact. So a lot of what, location scouts and then assistant managers, as, we're getting prepping for filming, and managers, I always say, just be yourself, be honest, be as informative as possible, because what happens is that if you don't tell the whole truth before filming comes, and then it's just completely different, they're going to lose trust in you, and it's just going to be a horrible experience. So if everybody is on the same page, it's so smooth. But, with that said, as you're getting to know these people, and even if you don't, you want to protect their property like it's your own. So, there are still locations, owners, location property owners, location, like um, representatives that I still talk to, because when you're moving up to filming, you talk to people so much, especially as schedule changes. But I've seen the flip side of that, where we've approached a location and they've been burned by another film, where they didn't tell them the whole truth, or they broke something or damaged something, and so that they were going to fix it and sort of never did. Where the neighbors said, they filmed at this house and it was great, but like two houses down, that they were left with trash in their yard, and nobody followed through to clean it up or take care of it. And that's just something that, as you move on, usually if you have a good location, you want to be able to come back to it again. And so you build up those relationships. So it's so important. And part of that too is that your whole department is on the same page, right? So you don't want, I always tell, like, as you're starting out, if you get asked a question, say you're there to make sure that the layout board is there and you're just starting out. If you don't know the answer to a question, don't answer. Say, let me find out. Don't give an answer that you don't know, because the property owner representative will be like, okay, that's the answer. But you also don't want two people of your department to be doing the same thing or to be working against each other, because everything is so scheduled that you just have to be as efficient as possible. So as much to the dismay of probably my departments, I always have a group chat for everybody. So even if it has nothing to do with them, like sometimes they get a pitch, so they know, okay, such and such is scouting this, they've been in this area, I'm going to stay away from there and go over here. So you don't get two people coming back with the same stuff. So yeah,
No.
and that goes to say, with cities too.
Oh yeah, and the communication has to be so uniform throughout. So the group chat idea, I mean, that's so smart, because you want everyone to know the information that's coming in. You don't want anyone to be left out, telling the wrong dates, the wrong
Yeah.
location. That's completely fair and so smart.
And we have, at any given time, we have so many locations that we're juggling, especially in episodic, because you're prepping, you're filming, and you're wrapping. So, you have people that are in the past, the present, and the future, right? And that's also crew members, so it's just a lot of back and forth. So even if you have, say, an electrician that's asking somebody on set, hey, what's the deal with what I need to do tomorrow? Even though it's another person that's taking over, like, just so everyone's on the same page, and information, because it's so easy for information to get passed through incorrectly. And when that happens, it just sets off a domino effect for chaos, which a lot of times you don't have time for.
Right. Oh my
So
God, because that takes away from filming or anything. I'm curious, how you were describing like the amount of organization and communication. What type, for any students that will be watching this, what type
yeah.
of personalities work really well as a location manager? Is it very extroverted personalities, very organized? How would you describe it?
So to give a little background on myself, I actually went to college. I was a psychology major and a theater minor, which, despite the fact that I did nothing with those majors, I do it on a daily basis, location managing, because I think you have to be empathetic and sympathetic and understandable and open, and all of those things, and a good listener. So like psychology has played such an invaluable role in even reading people. If like you have somebody that's angry, like a lot of times, when we film, like we always send out location notification letters, right, which is something that's very important. So you're filming, you want to go at least 3 blocks from where your last truck is or vehicle, and do the radius. And there's always a couple people that just want to get on their soapbox, or again have had a bad experience, and they call and they complain and they just want to be heard. And you can't yell back at them. You just say, okay, I understand. What can I do to make the situation easier? So, there's that aspect. Yeah, I mean, I think being able to easily talk to people is a really good asset, but it's not necessary. I mean, because if you know the job, I think with anything, you'll be able to communicate what needs to be done and you'll be able to listen and figure out. Um, I don't know. I just like going and talking to people and meeting people. So I end up building relationships that way. But by doing so, you end up, you know, building relationships and being able to like do things and, call in favors if needed. I think though, being a really good listener and being able to, as far as like location management, like delegate and know what needs to be done and be able to have, like I said, your past, present, and future. So, on any given moment, you're, looking ahead maybe like 2 weeks to like what's there, but also like, okay, this set needs to be wrapped and something broke and we have to do this or redo the floors. And you have a dozen balls in the air. And so to be able to like figure out what's what and, how to delegate to who and figure out, okay, like this person in the real world needs something done, but this crew member like needs to get into this house tomorrow at 7 a.m. and it's like 8 p.m, like trying to do all of that. It's a lot, and then if you're getting calls, if they're night filming, you're getting calls at 3 a.m, but then you have to be up at 7. So it's a lot.
I mean, you have to make miracles happen sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the whole rerouting air traffic.
Oh my, yes, please start with that story because I'm ready to hear it. I want all the details. That's
yeah, and I think that the moral of this is that when you watch a movie, like something that just happens in a blink of an eye that you don't actually think about, like has taken sometimes months, which is in this case, in this film, you have basically an airport establishing scene, which is an airplane flying over airport hotel with the airport in the background. The scene is maybe 5 seconds long. This took me about 2 months to talk about. This was post 9/11, so any lighting equipment, especially if it was high, the FAA needed to be cleared, which initially is the first thing that I called about to say, hey, we're going to be filming here. It's not at the airport, but we're filming at this hotel. Hopefully, which is another thing, is that the guy didn't want us to film there. So that was a lot of like schmoozing and writing letters and like pleading. So they're like, yeah, well, what do you want to do? And so I basically was on the phone with the FAA telling them, we want to get an airplane to fly over this. So we're going to have lighting and, it'll be this time of day. And, when we scouted, this was the direction that the airplane was. And they were like, let me put you. So I talked to like 3 people, I got put on hold and went to this. And they're like, well, so the way that the wind speed affects the air travel. So you could be filming on this day, but you won't necessarily get the shot that you want. And so I'm explaining to this and they're like, well, keep us posted on what day you're filming in, because as you know, film schedules change, weather, actors, whatever. So we were leading up to that scene, I think we changed schedules maybe obviously 5 times, but I think that date changed maybe 3 or 4 times. It kept getting pushed and altered. Within that time, every single time that happened, or just to check in, I would call the FAA, and then they eventually put me in touch with the air tower. And we were all talking and trying to figure out, it wasn't even the lights at this point. Like they knew that was approved, like that was okay. It was okay. What's the weather pattern for the day that you want to film? So it was like 2 weeks before, up 2 months before, every week. And then a month before, it was like maybe twice a week, trying to figure out if we could like schedule the right day. And finally the air tower, because, I'd we had talked so much. We were like best friends at this point. They were like, okay, we don't usually do this, but bring someone from your crew into the air tower. We were filming far enough away that we had to have a middle person to act as the conduit between the person in the air towers from like my department. I didn't want to go because I don't want to know all the inner workings when I'm flying. So I was sort of like, okay, you guys. So we had a conduit, and then the day that we were filming, wouldn't you know, like the wind speed changed, and it would have been like totally in the wrong direction, not where we need. So we had the camera set up, and because of the diligence that we all did, and the communication and the perseverance and the transparency, we were able to actually like have the air tower then talk to the pilots and say, hey, they're filming a movie, like, are you guys okay to reroute and come this way to land? And you guys can wave to the film cameras or whatever. Obviously we can't see. So I think we had like 3 or 4 pilots that said sure. So they basically were able to time it so they were able to get the cameras in position and start rolling before the airplane flew overhead. So what was a scene that, inevitably, like, had we not done the due diligence of communication for as long as we did, or at all, and we're like, okay, we have the hotel, like, let's set up for this scene. Like, had we not done that, who knows? I mean, like, we would have had to have gone back another day, and especially when you're trying to get it at the perfect sun, when you want like magic hour, and, the plane has to be at a certain height. There's so many details. So I don't know. I think it's pretty cool, like, to say that for this movie, like, we were, but we did, and it was like a scene, an establishing scene that could have taken forever to shoot. Like, to be able to have basically the pilots on walkie by like virtue of just the different steps was like beyond valuable. And like, so you watch this movie and you're like, I mean, it's like when you go to get a drink of water, like you don't even, but it's like a scene that you're like, okay, now I know where they are, and how cool that this was done live. But it's not like someone had their iPhone out being like, okay, let's just like do this. So
It's wild because you
it's a
never
lot of work.
yes, and you made it look seamless.
What's that?
You made it look seamless. Like you said, it's when someone would blink or they wouldn't even think twice about it. And that's because you put so much effort into it that
Yeah.
it seems and it's establishing. And it's exactly what the director wanted. That's incredible. The amount of time that went into that is insane to me. And so just from what I was introducing you as, you were saying that you had to shut down 16 miles of highway. How do you
Yeah.
even start that? Like, who do you even get in contact with to start that process? What's the first stepping stone? Walk me through kind of the layers you have to break through.
So we had a car chase scene. I don't know if you've seen Banshee. It was this awesome scene where we had like cars in tandem and they're climbing from one car to the other. And to build up the speed, you need enough room. I mean, and you're fine, when we do this in the production meetings, we're using toy cars, but you need enough room to lead up to speed, and you need enough room to have the camera vehicles and whatnot. So we had a meeting about it, and we were like, okay, to be able to like shoot this, have them get up speed, have the tandem cars, have the follow cars, and to be able to shoot it more than once, we needed at least like 10 miles of highway. If not more, right? So, but then you're thinking about like, so you're going one way, you need the other way to then turn around and go back to like loop around, or to, if they wanted to do a camera angle, in this direction of the cars, my car going this way, right? So two ways, so you needed at least 10 miles 2 ways, right? So first call was to the film commission. Second call was to the Department of Transportation. And I called, and again, when you're dealing with moving an entire crew. For Banshee, we were based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And, everyone knows the TMZ, right? 30-mile zone. So you want to stay as close to the zone as possible. So initially we tried all of the roads there, and then there was like a road that's the outer perimeter of Charlotte. Inner perimeter is just too busy. And then, you have 77, you have the major highways. And we talked and they were like, sorry, there's no way. It's too busy. We can't shut down, especially for the amount of time that you need to. So, we basically were like trying all these different cities and jurisdictions, right? And eventually, we started saying, okay, like these main highways won't work, but let's look at toll roads, which are, the paid. So we found a toll road that is right outside of Greenville. That's a loop. And we basically shut the whole thing down, the whole thing. And, it obviously they had to recoup the money that they would have lost otherwise. But when you're looking at doing that, so it was a lot of logistics and then meeting with the state patrol officers and the DOT and making sure, what time we could get, because our base camp was literally parked on the highway. We needed enough time to have where you have the road closure signs. We had to put electronic road closure signs to make sure nobody would come on any entrance of the highway. And you can imagine how many on-ramps there are. We had state troopers at every single entrance at the top to, again, make sure that if they did get through, that they wouldn't get on, because like, how dangerous if you have crew standing there, with walkies and, trying to rig something, and, you have a car that's like going to work, and just totally. So we had like state troopers, road signs, like, the amount of, I'm going to say security, but it was protection, safety protection that we had, and then we had to have enough, you always have to think, okay, these state troopers can't stand here and sit here for like, 16 hours. You get there at like 4:30 in the morning, make sure, you get everything ready so you can start filming once the sun comes up. So we had to get extra, so they could, rotate shift to eat. We'd make sure like, we'd go and drop them off food, whatever exit they were. But, my gosh, it was fun. Like to be able to like lie down in the middle of like a piece of highway and not have anyone coming, or like ride in a state trooper car to get from like where your base camp was to like 16 miles down to like where they're filming, but
Wild. That's
it
so
was really cool. Yeah. And
wow. You were queen of the highway. You could do anything. Like that's so crazy.
it's just, I have a hard time taking no for an answer, but in a nice way. So I'm like really persistent, and I'm always like trying to think of like, okay, like this can't work, but like, how can we figure this out? So like, we're all still happy, but like, you know, maybe we can tweak it or come at it from a different way. And just try to, thinking out of the box, I think with anything that you do in the film industry is huge. No matter what position you are, you get bonus points.
Yes, because you have to have creative solutions for an imaginary world that doesn't exist. So I could not agree
Yeah.
more. And that is so
Yeah.
smart. And I love how you phrased it. Taking no, I don't take no well, but in a nice way. That's amazing. I love that. So
Yeah.
I'm fabulously curious. And if you aren't allowed to disclose any of this, feel free to stop me. But just in general, kind of a two-part question. What is the price looking like for shutting down like a highway or an airport? What realm is that even in? And then along with that, with any student filmmakers watching, do you have any
Yeah.
suggestions of where to start filming that is relatively inexpensive, or any grounds that are like public free range or anything like that that you would suggest?
Yeah. So Well, okay. So if you want to shut down a highway like that, I mean, I would say if you figure the amount of cars that go on it and the biggest amount of toll, like it's in the tens of thousands of dollars. Um, which when you're trying to do a scene like that, you just have to figure out the budget. Like, okay, so you have this, but then you can't spend this somewhere else.
What I'm hearing is I can't shut down a highway for $5.
You cannot get down a highway for $5. But what you can do is, a lot of times what we normally do when we do not shut down roads is we do what we call rolling roadblocks or intermittent traffic control. Rolling roadblocks is where it's on par with like funeral processions, so you have cops that basically play Frogger in a way to let a car go through and drive. So if you're doing a driving scene and you do a rolling roadblock, you'll have usually like a couple of PAs or, crew members. So you'll have crew cars in front or behind, and depending on if you have the camera attached to the car or it's on a trail bed, a process trailer, the cop is, basically looping around to make sure you can keep going. Intermittent traffic control is where you're filming a scene and say you're out in the middle of the road or you have a camera positioned in the middle of the road. They just stop traffic for like a few minutes at a time. And then, you try to get what you need to get, and then they let traffic go, and then you try again. But you have to be really careful with that because you can't take advantage of how long they will hold traffic for. So that's an option. I mean, you can still do driving scenes. And obviously, like if you have a handheld or a GoPro, like you can just do it on your own. So it doesn't matter, which I've seen a lot of students do. Places to film. So, I mean, parks are good, like, obviously like family homes. But, if you're interrupting somebody's business, then they're going to have a loss of income. So, if you're in stores, unless it's just a small setup and you can work your way into doing it at an odd hour, that might work better for the business, with not much equipment. Parks, a lot of times, like when you permit, or even I would say like meet with the film commission or the city, like if you're doing a student film, there are different rules in terms of, obviously students are vastly different from, big budget blockbuster movies. So, but I think that, you know, I would say just remember though the neighbors, like yeah, you're filming for free, but if you're putting stuff on other people's property to get permission to do that, um, you know, I don't know, like where are students filming mostly? Like campuses, I guess, like dorms, like people's apartments.
I would say, yeah,
Um,
this is what I see a lot of is dorm rooms, families' homes, a park.
yeah.
That, like, even me being a new filmmaker, what is the, like, I guess, roll call for if I'm filming at a park? Do I need to be in contact with the government or whoever owns that park to be like, is this okay? Or when do I need to start sending out emails? What budget level do you think it's appropriate to start asking for permission versus just going to a park with a GoPro and doing a short student film? Where's kind of the level with that?
So a lot of times if you go onto the park's website or the Department of Recreation website, like I would always just do diligence, and it's a good thing to get into the habit of saying, hey, we're doing a student film. We're going to be here from this hour, this time to this time. It's going to be however many people it'll be. We're going to have a GoPro. I think where it starts to get more in depth is when you have a tripod set up or something more with lighting equipment and all of that, which a lot of times if you look like if you can take photos, but once you start setting up a photo shoot, but if you're just like doing a film with a GoPro, like nobody's gonna, nobody's gonna stop you with that per se. But if you see a park ranger, they're gonna say, "What are you doing?" So it's always good to say, "Hey, like, we go to this school. We're doing this project. We're not going to be there that long. We're going to make sure, you know, we're respectful. And, if people need to get by, we'll let them and we'll work in accordance with, A, B, C, or D." Um, I think it's when you start getting into like the more detailed locations that you start getting into more logistics. Like I would always say, you know, contract, even if like you're not exchanging money, like have a contract. Insurance is something that we do as studio films or studio TV shows, but it's just something that once you get into the bigger scheme of it, you'll learn you always have to do contract, insurance certificate. And then I always do a release at the end. So I tell locations, do not sign this. Like when we're finished, we'll restore your property. Don't sign this until you're happy. And basically what this does is this gives them power. They know that we're not just going to leave them high and dry, which unfortunately happens. And it's horrible. I've had to restore people's trust so many times because that's happened to them. So say here, like don't sign this until you're happy. Like let us know, like what we've had to, equipment scratched a wood floor. So, you have to refinish a floor or, fix a cabinet or, repaint, blah, blah, blah. But it sort of just puts a nice little bow on everything and you can leave with closure and know like, okay, we're welcome to come back again. And I always send out at the end of everything, my light turned out. At the end of everything, I always send out thank you cards too, to like the locations, the vendors, the neighbors, like anybody who is contacted, which I for every single episode of every single movie, like you have the homeowners, you introduce yourself to the neighbors, you get their phone numbers, like their cell phone numbers. So if anything comes up, you have that at your disposal. Always send thank you cards. It goes such a long way in the end.
No, that's an amazing suggestion. My mom always taught me that. So I always do it and I will continue
Yeah.
that into the professional world because I think that is so, so smart. I love that. And when you were saying, what was the name of the document that you said that they have power then if they have that and not to sign it?
Oh, a location release.
Location release. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And tell them do not sign it until everything is restored.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I mean, it's the form that says blank at address blank, in not any legalese, but usually if there's some form of legality in it, but it just says, I'm okay, like you guys have done what you said you were going to do. You left my property fine, nothing's broken. And it gives them that control, where they are like, okay, like you guys aren't going to leave me with like all this crap everywhere. But then it's also for the film company, like they can't come back in like a month and say, you guys like did this and now I'm gonna like turn around and sue you when everything was fine. Right. So
That's,
it's sort of a
give the
win-win.
leverage. That's so, so smart.
Yeah.
I'm
And it
sure.
just makes them feel like they have a say in it, like
Absolutely.
um the one thing that like, wherever you're filming, you want to make sure that you're not like making people feel like bulldozed.
Absolutely. Or used or anything. And I'm so sorry I
Yeah.
keep talking over you. There's definitely a lag. So my apologies for that.
Okay.
But the next question, out of curiosity, just because this is so out of my realm, what is a story you have that you really had to rebuild the trust? Something went wrong that was out of your control, something that was not supposed to go. And how did you do damage control with that? How do you start that apology? How does that even come about?
Okay. Well, so that's happened more than one occasion. It's happened coming to a location approaching a location for the first time when they've had a bad experience. But it's also happened, and I won't mention like the project or names, but it's happened when I've had a colleague make promises or, go in and, sort of use car salesman their way into location and then not communicate anything. And then it's like day of filming and they're like, what's going on? Like it's 4 a.m. Like you guys are setting up, we don't know. And um that honestly is where being as human as possible, you sort of have to like stop what you're doing in the film bubble and just like listen and be like, okay, oh my God, like that sucked. I totally get it. Um, you know, Part of when that happens is because somebody hasn't been truthful or they haven't been transparent or they haven't communicated. So I think that when somebody can tell like you're being real, like you're an authentic person, like you're not just like some whoever that is in this film crew, like you're an actual person that I can like have a conversation with about more than just what you're doing. And sometimes you just need to like stop what you're doing, like only answer like texts or calls if it's like super important to say, hey, I need an hour to make this better. And you just sit and talk with the person and explain and like go step by step what you're going to do, like ask them what you can do to make them feel comfortable, like have them meet people. Like I've had people come to our production office before just to see like what we're really doing. Um, it's really anything that you can do to make them feel comfortable and heard. Everybody wants to be heard, right? And like respected. And if you're bringing a circus into somebody's house or business or office, like you want to make sure that they know what's going on, that the circus is coming to town, but we're going to take care of everything. It's going to look crazy, but like such organized chaos, and like I've sat with property owners before as everything's happening and like explained, while we're in their house, or I'll have them come to like set at another location and be like, okay, like these are the grips. This is what they're doing now. They're working at the same time as like, the electrician, like everything is sort of happening and moving. And it's like they're able to see this beautiful dance unfold depending on like who's who and like be like, okay, like, and if you have a good crew, your crew will like, like I've been so fortunate that most of everyone that I've worked with has been so respectful and so caring. And like, even, during prep or wrap or even filming, if they see, they're like, hi, like, thank you so much for letting us use your property. It's beautiful. We really appreciate it. They introduce themselves, and just to make people feel like they're part of it. Like, it's not just, we're paying you, now get out of the way. And it's just so important, it's so important. Because it's somebody's house, it's their private stuff. And a lot of times we're moving their private stuff to bring our stuff in. And the thing is too, is like the crew that we're figuring out the logistics for this property, like it's just communicating with everybody and even the neighbors, because if somebody's neighbor's pissed, then they're gonna have a really hard time.
No,
So
absolutely. And as you were saying, you're moving into someone's home. I just worked on a really short, like little scary horror film, and we were in this beautiful mansion. But I remember all the
yeah,
equipment leaving like scuff marks on the ground, and things were happening as it does with film equipment and people who are moving very heavy things. Just things are going to happen. Who
yeah.
I'm just curious, is it your role then to take photos of everything?
Locations.
Yes, and then for you to go in at the end of the shoot and make sure everything looks exactly the same, or is that a different person's role, or are you
Yep.
overseeing
Oh,
it?
no, that's all us.
Okay.
So like we make sure that during prep before crew starts coming in, like ideally what should happen is, layout board. You put layout board on the ground, any pathway that people are going to be walking in or setting up equipment, layout board, or those, like those rugs that you see when it's raining out in the stores, the mats, right? or using those, especially if it's raining, you want to make sure that, everything, nothing unless it's on camera is touching the floor, right? We even put layout board on the walls. So, a grip stand doesn't, painter's tape, always use painter's tape, right? But you want to put it on the walls to make sure that you don't ding any walls. We've worn booties in people's houses before to make sure that, there are no scuff marks. We close up bathroom, like always don't use people's bathrooms. Keep out of the refrigerator. Things like that, because, we've had people like, obviously when they're not supposed to, and then, use bathrooms or whatnot. Like I've walked in and like people have been like sleeping in beds, and it's just really unfortunate. And so, part of prep is making sure that the property is prepped for crew to come in and do what they need to do. All the time, I always have a location rep on site during prep, filming, and wrap at all times to make sure that nobody is doing anything. You're the liaison between the crew and the homeowner. So if the crew has a question, they go to you, you find out. You also make sure that, they're not leaving their water bottles all over the place, or, so that's what we do. And then at the end, say you have the scuff marks on the floor, we have to make sure that that's all clean. We usually get a cleaning service. We ask them if there's someone that they use, or, we get somebody that we use to go in and do like a full deep clean of the house. If that doesn't solve it, then we'll usually, have to do a polish and whatever of the floor, depending on what it is. But, that's even, we've shot pool scenes, so you have to like, if we're filming pool scenes, we take over pool service for like a while before, because usually when you're filming in a pool scene, you want the water to be a lot hotter than what the normal temperature is, so the actor or actress can get in and be comfortable. You make sure that the chlorine is good. In which you're using the homeowner's electricity, so you have to figure out how to recoup for that. So they're not paying for you to do what you need to do. And we always do that with water too. Give us your water bill, give us that. Figure it out. Where you get water meters to hook onto hydrants to get water that way. And then you get billed from the city or county.
Wow.
Which we always do. That was like one of the first things that we do is get water meters.
Wow, that's so interesting that you just talked about the swimming pool, because I was literally just watching Titanic the other day.
Yeah.
And obviously there's everything's flooded, and I was thinking, I wonder if that water's heated for the actresses and actors, and I'm sure they have to, because the scene goes on, and just what you said, you need the pool to be hotter, you need the water to be hotter, because it's going to be for a lot of screen time, so the actors are going to be freezing.
Yeah. Well, I actually was just reading an article. I think that for Titanic, it wasn't. I think Kate Winslet actually got hypothermia, poor thing, like, because he wanted it to be real. But normally, and I could be wrong. I could just be like totally pulling that out of my butt. But I read, because you can see that they're like freezing, right? But normally, yes. And you also, it's our job too to have heating tents set up for the actors to go into, It's also our job to set up catering tents and figure out where base camp's going to go, and crew parking is going to go, and work trucks, and do the permits for that, and make sure that's all set up. Even if you're putting a tent in somebody's parking lot, like you're still figuring out the logistics so you're not interfering with their day-to-day activities. Writing directions for the crew, making sure your map's okay. And, the worst thing is, when you have a bunch of crew coming and, you haven't talked to the DOT or whatever, and all of a sudden they like close down the exit that you have everybody getting off at, like at the last minute, and you can't tell it, so it's just, again, communication, and, always get there early to make sure everything's set up, and locations, you're in early or out late. But with that said, you always have an early person and a late person. So I just want to share that if you are going to get into the location department, that doesn't mean you're going to work like 18-hour days every day, because everything's always delegated and, adjusted. So you're not like going to kill yourself in the process.
Fair, fair. And so if Titanic had you as the location manager, the water would have been heated. You would have taken care.
I mean, yeah, ideally, but if it's on a water tank in the stage, then we really have no control over it. It sort of is, it falls onto, I mean, thankfully for us, because we have a lot to do, another department.
No, absolutely. That's just fascinating. So you've done so many different locations, even your like side stories, like when you're telling a story, you're like, oh, I did the football field, or all of this stuff is just wild to me. Can you just brag for like 5 minutes or so and give me just some of the coolest moments of your job? Because I mean, you get to work in movies, which is already fantastic, and then you get to work in incredible locations. So there's some really, really cool stories.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry about that.
I don't even know where to start. I don't know. I mean, I feel like the coolest stories for me are not like the celebrities that I've seen, but the people that I've met like while filming, that I've like been trusted with keys to their house, or store, and I've run the gamut from filming, in like a tiny apartment that's like dilapidated, or like a warehouse that's like about to fall apart, or like that needs abatement of some sort. That we always have, that's always us too. Okay, like asbestos abatement and lead abatement, like we have to check environmental factors. Or like water, like if you have someone that's going into a lake, we have to check to make sure that the water is safe. But one of the coolest actually locations that I was able to film at, it was for the Nicholas Sparks movie, The Last Song, with Miley Cyrus and Liam Hemsworth. But this was the movie that they actually got together on, and it was the location that represented his family's home. So it was this old Southern plantation, which I did not find it. I didn't scout it. I was just at that point like in charge, of making sure that the house didn't break. So it was at Wormslow Plantation, which is this gorgeous location in Savannah, Georgia, that it's been a while. So the history of this property, it's been in the same family for like generations. It was given to them by King George the whatever of England. And it's just all this acreage, and it's this beautiful ivory fence that when you go in, it's like miles of live oaks. I mean, it looks like a fairy tale, especially when you go in the morning. It's foggy, there's deer, and it's just these arches of live oaks that you're driving down this dirt road. And what the family did was they have the property along the left, which is where their private home is and library and everything, which is along the water. The property to the right of this road is they donated to the Parks Department. So when we filmed there, we actually had a deal with the Parks Department, the county, and then we had to talk to the property owner. So I was given the code to this gate that every morning, and he gave me a key to his house, which was like the most gorgeous piece of property. I mean, I didn't like go exploring, but we needed to be able to. So he had a library with like books that were like hundreds of years old that we shot. I mean, and so this piece of property that you have people that are coming and going into the park. Nobody ever sees this private area, and I was able to go there every day. And like sit and like talk with these people and get to know them, and like sit on the dock by the water, and like he gave me a tour of the library and the books, and just the pathways through the marsh. I mean, it's like things like that just really resonate with me. Like those are the memories that, you know, even after a while, like I was still like, I would send them like holiday cards, like all my locations, like they send me like holiday card, like, you know, we've exchanged addresses. You know, there's, this was when I was first starting out too, which was called Rescue Me, which is a show that might be before a lot of your time, but it was the Dennis Leary firefighter show, which I would say if you haven't watched it, like it's, I'm sure it's streaming somewhere, and it's just a phenomenal show, especially seeing firefighters in New York post 9/11 and what he did um, for just the whole like morale of that. You know, I mean, especially being a New Yorker, being able to like work on that show post, it was just like really heartfelt and so cool to be able to set things on fire. You know, I mean, like we blew up a school bus in the middle of Harlem, which was really cool. One of the scenes was there was a fire in a building in Washington Heights, which is where the Heights movie to sort of give an idea of like the neighborhood. Lin-Manuel Miranda's like the movie that's coming out, the musical, The Heights, Washington Heights, and there are all these like old buildings and like basically, you know, we had to put like window boxes in all these apartments, and which are like fire things. So we were going through this building trying to figure out like, okay, we need that window, and then figuring out what apartment correlated to that, and then, you know, saying, hey, can we come in and we're gonna like put stuff in your window, and it'll be like fire, and like the actors were like propelling from the roof, and so, you know, it looked like, you know, and you had actors like hanging out the window being like, help me, you know, as they're saving, and we had the fire trucks. So basically we took over this whole building. Also the block, because when they were doing the shot, you know, so all these buildings to not put their trash out on the day because we were filming, and so they like left it all, and after filming we had to put it all to the street for them because they were so kind as to not do it. So they, this isn't bragging, but this is just part of the job. Oh my God. We were like, they put out like ovens that we had to figure out how to like get to the street, and like trash bags. And I had like rats like running over my feet. But we did it. And the thing is though, is when I look back, like it's almost like laughable now, because it was just, I wasn't there by myself, you know, it was like our department, and it was like the camaraderie of like, okay, we have to do this now, like, because you have all these people and all like the supers of the building that like, you know, rearrange their schedules to let us do it. Cause you know, there are fire trucks and the fires and blah, 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 blah. But when I look back now and I think about it, I don't think about that. Like I think about like how much fun it was, and like hanging out on the roof and seeing, and like being able to like, you know, I was like the elevator girl for a while to make sure that like we didn't break the elevator. So I was like pushing the buttons for everybody to like go up and down, you know, because we didn't want to like take over the building's elevator. But I don't know, things like that. But my God, like despite the trash, like the on the job training from that, because you really, by watching, you know, how people did things from all departments, especially when you're working with pyro, which on that show, as a firefighter show, there was a lot. Um, the more you can like, if you really like, just watch and learn, and I'm saying, just take notes for yourself and just see how people like handle certain situations or react or talk, or you know, all these different things. You know, I find that there are a lot of people that, you know, they just want to hang out by Video Village, and that's not how you're going to learn. um, so I don't know, I'm trying to think of like other I
But
don't
already
know.
memories are just unbelievable. Like the whole team going together, that's so cool. And then you'll never forget that moment, even though it's gross trash, you'll never
Yeah.
forget. That's so cool to me. I love that. That's incredible. And the whole group coming together too. Everyone working. I think that's so wonderful. When you are talking about like older buildings, at what point with safety do you say we should get an old building that we can light on fire or fake fire or stuff like that versus a set? When do you
So
think safety kind of plays into that?
a lot of locations, like when you see buildings on fire, that's all special effects. Like we're not really like setting, it's all like the fire bars and the panels. So, or it's like the blow torches, and then they go in post and are able to make it look bigger. Old buildings which have so much character, and I filmed in so many of them, and it's doable. Like what generally the process is you want to get a structural engineer, which costs money, but you want to make sure that the building is not going to fall on anybody or cave in, or if you're looking to get equipment or go up on another level, that the floor is going to hold. Um, but other things that we do is environmental. So, like I said, like we check for asbestos and lead, and we've had locations where we've had to go in and totally remediate like the location before we film it. But we've looked a lot of times. So fire departments, and there's some like fire training centers that will take houses that before they're torn down, and they'll use them as a training facility. So we had, I can't remember what project it was on, but we actually had, they were looking to basically burn down a house. And so we looked at like dilapidated houses and like scouted, and we're like, do you want to burn down this barn? Like, we'll pay you. Like, is this something you've been looking to do? We had a couple of people that were like, okay, general stores, like if you go into a general store of a town and start talking to people, like you'll get a lot of information. But a lot of times the fire department, you can call them and say, hey, are you guys going to do any training soon? And they'll tell you like what house they're looking at and when they're looking to do it. And a lot of times they'll let you like go and film. But the thing is like, because it's a training for them, you have different logistics, and you may not be able to do what you want to do, or it might not be the time of day, or it might not, so, if you're doing something with fire and you want to get the distressed look, which is why then it's easier to have something that you can control. So you just have the pyro, and then you go in the next day and, take a few boards off, and, they fix the paint, and voila, you have a house that's been like burned down. So there are a lot of different ways. I think a lot of it depends on like schedule, budget, what the look is that you're going for. Um, Neighbors, right? You don't want to like do something that is like you have a neighbor. Like, I mean, it's doable, but it's easier if you're not, right? um,
Because if you're filming, let's say you're doing a reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street and you're showing a lot of suburban houses, do you have to
yeah,
get permission then from every single house that you are showing
yeah,
while you drive through or anything?
yep. Well, um, if you're just doing like a driving scene and you're shooting like outside, but if you're like featuring, um, it's sort of, if you're featuring the house, like if you're standing there walking past, like you let the neighbors know. Sometimes you get an exterior location um, contract, just saying, hey, like your house is going to be. But usually, if you're just doing a drive by, then no, like you shouldn't have to do that unless you're going to be like stopping on like the 7-Eleven, and being like, okay, like they're going out, then obviously. But
Fair.
uh,
If you're
yeah,
calling attention to it, then look more into it.
Yeah.
And let them know.
But like, regardless, I would always just let people know, like, if you're trying to establish a neighborhood that you're going to be in filming, like, go door to door and just say, hey, like, this is me, like, this is what we're doing, this is my cell phone, like, if you have any problems, call me night or day, like, I will be there. And then I always like give like an alternative cell phone too, just so they know, like, you know, if I'm busy, like, they're not, you know, stuck with like, there's a light shining in my window and I can't sleep.
And it's 4 a.m. What do I do?
Yeah. And you know, everything's doable, everything's fixable, right? But I would say, like, if you don't tell us, then we won't know. You know, I mean, a lot of times you can say, oh, look, there's a light shining in that window, like, please go knock and make sure that they're okay. And if they're in the neighborhood, like, we'll have their phone numbers, right? Because you want to make sure that you have that. If you're going to be anywhere near, I always just, if you're make contact, get the phone number, just in case.
That's so smart. Just to have the connection in case anything goes wrong. I'm really jotting notes as you're talking because this is incredible. That is so smart.
Go say hi. You know, and like businesses, we on Banshee, we filmed, and I've done this other locations too, where, like, you know, especially if it's a recurring location. We were filming the Caddy, which, if you're familiar with Banshee, was the police station, right? And like a couple of doors down was this amazing ice cream place called Mooresville Ice Cream. And whenever we were filming there, because of our vehicles, and we would usually block off the street to pedestrian traffic and make it harder for people to go in to get ice cream. So instead of just, which a lot of times, like, businesses are like, can you pay me money to recoup my losses? And then that's when you have to go into, show me what you made last year, show me what you made the year before. You can't just have them pull a number out of their butt and say, like, this is what you owe me, $20,000, you know, for a bead shop, you know, or whatever, like someplace where obviously they don't make that in a day. So you have to get all of their and then figure it out. What I usually do, like, which has worked amazingly if you can. So the ice cream store, like, whenever we were there, like, instead of just giving them a check, what I would do is say, okay, like, when we're filming, here's a check, 200 of that will be ice cream for the crew. So they can go in, get like whatever they want. You tally it up, you make money, you sell ice cream, our crew gets ice cream, they're happy. And if we go over the $200, let me know and I'll, like, you know, fix it and give you extra to make sure that it's not coming out of the rest for the inconvenience fee.
That's so finding a compromise that's amazing. I really am taking notes on all this because you just made the ice cream people happy and your crew happy with the same solution. That's incredible.
Well, and the thing is like, so our crew would get this ice cream. So like, even if like we weren't filming there, like they would go, like, you know, because it was like our main town that we were in. It was like our home base. So they would like go get ice cream even if like we weren't there. So it would be, you know, we were scouting the area and we'd always go in to get ice cream, and it was like, yay, ice cream. But I don't know. It pains me to be like, here's a check. Because then I feel like you get a lot of businesses are like, well, these people got $500 last time, so we want to get $500. And it's like, well, actually, like, we got ice cream from them. You know, we didn't just like, you know, people have this misconception of, you know, film comes and they see dollar signs. So you have everybody and their mother initially, you know, being like, they all want a handout for no reason, right? Which is why I say, like, show me what your profits were from last year and the year before or last month, you know, and make them prove it. Or we say, okay, like, how can we make this beneficial for both of us? Because handing out money just is like painful to me. I feel like you're just feeding this like misconception of like, you know, because everything is a budget. Like, even, you know, you work on Marvel movies, like they have a budget. Yeah, it's bigger budget, but everything is so accounted for that you can't just be like, oh, here's $50,000. Like, sorry.
Yes, and also humanizing, like that form of connection. You're talking to them, you go into the ice cream shop, and then you have a new favorite ice cream shop. So everyone
Yeah.
wins. It's
Yeah.
perfect. That's so
And they loved it.
that's amazing. That's so okay. And then finally, I'm writing once again all of this down because I just noticed the time and I definitely wanted to ask this question before
Yeah.
I have to log off. Any advice you have for new filmmakers within location management, things to just think of, look out for, any words of advice that you would just offer?
Um, so I would say always have a notepad and pen. It's not, I say be willing to learn and work. It's hard, I think, when you come from film school or like college with, like I came from like a pretty good college with like, a pretty good degree and, and then I'm clearing out trash from Washington Heights, like you can't take yourself too seriously. Um, if you say, well, I went to, everybody that you're working with went to college. Like everybody did this, but the thing is what I think to move up in the film industry is you have to be willing to learn, be cooperative, be honest, be trustworthy. Always show up 15 minutes early, um, and just don't take yourself too seriously. Learn. Okay, yeah, I might have to like bring a sandwich to this person, but it's okay. Or like, dump this trash bag which is leaking and that just got all over me. Like like I can't even tell you. But you're just like, all right, whatever. Like, but I get to be here. And so, you have a change of clothes, you change, and you're like, this isn't forever. Like this is you get your foot in the door, no matter what you do, right? So like if you can get a job, say you want to be a director or, in camera, get a job as a PA in whatever department you can get a job in, learn. It's not like, well, I don't want to be an AD, so I don't want to be a PA, right? You just learn, you show them that you can like do the job, you're there, you're trustworthy, they can count on you, you don't complain, and then little by little you start to like make friends and get to know with people in the other departments, and you're like, hey, like, they see that you do a good job, maybe on the next one you'll say, hey, if you need somebody, can you bring me on as one of your PAs, right? And then you're in that department, right? And then you learn and you have a notepad and you watch how they do things, and you try, if they're in the middle of like 1,000 things and they ask you to do something, you do it, and then you ask them why later, when it's a better time. But and then little by little, like I did, I mean, like when I got into the film industry, I was working. So I was a theater minor. Like I had goals to like be working in the theater and act and, all this stuff. And I was working at night and having grown up in New York City. I had a friend of mine that was doing locations, and he was like, we're trying to find this building. Do you know of anything like that? And I was like, oh yeah, totally. So during the day I would just ride around for fun because I had my days free and show them. And like I unintentionally, I was like, oh, this is how you scout. And, you take the pictures and you put it together and you like meet people and you talk to them. And then like I met the location manager who got me on set as a PA, and I was still working in the theater and doing this. And little by little, if you are willing to learn, um, you can move up, and, sometimes quickly, depending on like if you're in a place that's really busy. Um, But what I would always say is if you get asked a question by somebody and you don't know the answer, don't answer. Say, let me check on that for you. Like is one of my like biggest pieces of advice. Don't try to know everything. It's okay if you don't. Um, and then it's a learning experience for you too. And then you can go back and follow up with that person, right? Or say, let me have this person get in touch with you. Um,
Wonderful. That's an
But
incredible mantra in general and an incredible thing to leave us all with, because that's so smart. And it builds trust too, because you're being human. You don't know everything. That's wonderful.
well,
Great.
that's how
Oh, go
I
ahead.
try to. No, I'm just saying that's just how I try to like. I mean, do the job, and I think like live life is just like karma. You know, like you want to like do a good job and pay it forward and be good human and like try to like like realize like everybody is like everybody's human, right? Everybody puts their pants on the same way. So like, you're dealing with this location. Okay, they might be cranky. What's going on? Like, talk to me. Like, what can I do? Let's go out. Can I bring you coffee? Let's chat.
I love it. That's amazing.
Oh.
Can I get you ice cream?
Can I get you ice cream? Or like, we'll like go and get pizza. Like there's so many, like, okay, like we're gonna buy like 50 slices, 50 slices, 50 pies of pizza for like second meal. I mean, it's just things like that like I would rather do that than just give the restaurant like a check, because then that's going to happen the next time, and I'd rather it just be like, okay, like you see us, like we make pizza, you want our pizza.
And product placement. It works both ways.
Right?
I love
No,
it. Well, I am so thankful for you taking the time and doing this chat with me. This was so good to get to know you and so everyone can learn.
yeah.
And I just have a couple announcements and then I'll toss it back to you. So if you just want to close out and say goodbye to everyone, just a
Yeah.
couple things that I wanted to run through. The first being, thank you all so much for watching. And we have our next movie making week coming up April 6th to the 12th. We're super excited about that. Start planning. I've already heard of some ideas from different students, so I cannot wait to see what everyone creates. After that, we also have the Day in the Life Challenge. I'm going to go through the guidelines just a little bit. So all of this is at campusmoviefest.com, but just so you can hear it verbally. It started on March 17th and it goes till March 31st. You can win a prize up to $600 worth of camera equipment, which is so, so cool. And basically post a 60-second or less video entry through TikTok or Instagram Reels and create an account through them and show what a day in the life of a college student, faculty, or staff member looks like during the COVID-19 pandemic. All entries must include the hashtag CMF Day in the Life and tag CMF's account. Next, we have our Disney Women in Film program. If you're female identifying, I'm slurring my words. If you're female identifying or your film is about female identifying characters, definitely submit to this challenge. And last, we have our Goldman Sachs challenge, which is rewrite the script. And it's how to redefine the approach and the topic of race. Really, really cool partnerships and different challenges we have going on. So check them out all at campusmoviefest.com. And thank you all so much for watching. Once again, my name is Byron, and Rachel, I'll toss it back to you if you want to say any closing words. Otherwise, thank you all so much.
Thank you, Byron, and thank you, students and Campus Movie Festival. And I just want to say, I'm not really like social media savvy. It's really just my own personal account. But if anybody has like questions or anything that they want to follow up with, like, are they able to reach out to you guys? Like, I'm happy to share my email address through you. Like, I don't know if I want to broadcast it right now, but can I reach out to you guys? Like,
yes, for sure.
Okay.
We can handle that on our side. If anyone does have questions, this video is posted at campusmoviefest.com and they can always get in contact with us and then we can refer them from there.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm happy, like, if anything, if this leads up to like any questions that you may have for your own personal projects or any thoughts after, like, totally happy to help, because it's good for the big picture of everything. But thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, Rachel, and thank you everyone for watching. Everyone have a good night.
Good night.